Cancer, welcome to your November 2018 Astro Update. It's Raina here, and November is a very important month, I would say. Even though it's at the end of the year, we still have this year to deal with, and we're wrapping things up, but there's new stuff on the horizon in November, and I will get to that in 1 second. I'm going to talk about what is coming in from October into November. And the sun is in that 5th house of romance because it's in your fellow water sign, Scorpio. So this is a really nice time for just enjoying yourself, pleasurable activities. That could be, for some people, parties and, social gatherings. For others, it might be going to plays and movies, concerts. And this is the house of romance. It's that falling in love stage, that dating phase. And it's the house of creativity. Now, the sun rules this house. So it kind of doubles your pleasure in that sense. When there's a transit of the ruler in its own house, it kind of really enhances what that house represents. So you can just be feeling overall a sense of well-being. The sun has a healing influence and it spreads positivity in your life. At the same time, Mars is in Aquarius and it's in the 8th house, which happens to be a water house in the universal chart. It's the house of Scorpio. And so this is a place where we might be talking about shared resources for some reason. So if you have a spouse, for instance, you may be having a little bit of conflict about how they are spending money, or maybe they are kind of looking at you and how you're spending money. Although with Cancer, I think it's usually you're the one that's who's telling the other person that they're spending too much money. And the other thing is that this is the house of inheritance, so that fighting or the conflict, some kind of a battle about an inheritance could be taking place, something along those lines. But it can just indicate increased activity. So there may be something related to the occult, which is also the 8th house, that deals with that kind of, exploration into astrology is a big thing with Aquarius, and just the meaning of life in general, that is the 8th house. I was just looking the other day because I have the sun in the 8th house. I wanted to find out more information, and it was so accurate about the meaning of life after death and things like that, because this is the house of death. And so, when you have a planet like Mars in that 8th house, it's like you want to know everything. It's almost like this obsession. Although Pluto is more of the planet of obsessions, I guess. So just activity. Oh, well, I kind of have been tiptoeing around this, but Mars can be the sex drive, and the 8th house is the house of sex on the spiritual level, on the level of bonding, and the way it would be emotionally as well. So who knows? I mean, maybe more of that type. Tantric yoga, anyone? On the 6th, Uranus is retrograding in your 10th house of career. Now, Uranus has been here until mid-May in this house. You may have had a lot of crazy ups and downs. I don't know if I'd call it ups and downs or ins and outs, just totally different plot twists when it comes to career matters. And because of that, it might have felt a little bit unstable for you, Cancer. And I'm assuming since Uranus has 7-year cycles, that we would be talking about since about 2011. And then it went into Taurus, which is a more favorable angle to you in your 11th house. Very early degrees, didn't get very far. And now it's back in Aries, retrograding. And so you can expect a little bit more like you experienced for those 7 years. I don't want to go, well, maybe even worse, because Uranus retrograding apparently is even more erratic than when Uranus is direct. And sometimes when a planet retrogrades, it actually does the opposite of what it typically does. But you never know. I mean, this could be something where an opportunity comes to you out of the blue. And I always think of Uranus as being a great influence as a transit. On the 7th, this is one of the days I was talking about, the 7th and the 8th, these two transits. But actually, on the 7th, we have a couple of things going on. We have the new moon in Scorpio, which is not anything unusual because we have one every year. And this one is in that 5th house of romance. So that's fun. If you are looking for love, if you're single, this can be a really great time to meet somebody. And the thing that is also exciting about this is that if you're an artist, this could be a time of new inspiration because the sun is there as well. And just feeling like yourself as an artist. Sometimes, I know this personally, other areas of our life take over and we may kind of put that side of ourselves on the back burner, sometimes for years. And it's great to get in that groove again. So new beginnings, new seeds being planted in the area of love and creativity. And then on the same day, the North Node goes into your sign. So that is really wonderful. For the last 18 months, the North Node has been in Leo, in your 2nd house of earned income. I wonder how that has affected the money that you earn. The North Node transit is kind of like a situation where something is destined to occur. Now, because it's the North Node, not the South Node, I think of like new directions in your life, new opportunities. But it's not the same as having Jupiter in this house. It's not necessarily that, maybe it's wrong to say new opportunities. Maybe it's supposed to be that whatever good fortune occurs for you, it's meant to be. And it's almost, you know what it's almost like? It's almost like you don't have to really work that hard for it because it's like waiting for you. It's waiting in the wings for you. But I never like to say that because I don't want people to just say, "Oh, good, I'm going to quit my job because I'm going to have this money coming into me." That would be like really foolish. That's not what I mean. I hope that you can understand that it's just that the universe wants you to experience something. Maybe you receive more money, and I'd almost like not put it in the category of just the money that you earn, because that could be very limiting, because I experienced Jupiter in the 2nd house and getting money that I didn't earn. So that doesn't always have to be just the money that you earn. But that was what happened in the last 18 months. Now we're talking about the 1st house. And this is kind of like, because by the way, the North Node transits backwards, if you were wondering about that one. And it's just the area of you as an individual. If you are a Cancer person who has been in a very troubled relationship, It could be the time that you fully see this and you fully make that break. And even if right now you've been experiencing issues with this person for other reasons, because, the cardinal signs are getting their fair share of challenges, as you probably know, especially Cancer, for the simple fact that you have Pluto opposing you, okay? So it's dredging up a lot of stuff, and Pluto is in that marital sector, in that 7th house, the opposite sign, opposite house, and so the South Node is going to join it. So anything, I just heard that car, I was like, hey, buy a muffler, buddy. So anything that you can do to really look at your relationship with a sense of reality and not fantasy, not kind of allowing yourself to not look at it the way, in a realistic way, the better for you. Because when the South Node goes into that sector, it is going to probably really press upon you. Oh yeah, and you have Saturn there too. So you have you have the South Node, Saturn, and Pluto in the 7th house. So that's pretty heavy. And it's all in that relationship house. And this is especially true if you feel like your primary relationship, maybe it's been a long-term relationship, and that is the reason that you cling to it, because you feel like, the average Cancer person is very nostalgic, is very connected to the past. You probably can remember great times that you've had with this person, but it may be past its prime. And hopefully with the North Node in the 1st house, you can, get back into this feeling of yourself as an individual. I certainly have been with the same person for many years, since I was a teenager, and I ain't a spring chicken anymore. And it's a really strange feeling when you've been with a person over twice as long as you've been alive. So it really begins to feel like you never had a life before that person, and yet you did. So even if you were 14, 15, 16, you had those years where you didn't have contact with that person. And yes, you probably lived at home, but I'm just trying to say that once we get into a relationship that's a primary relationship, we can totally lose that perspective of ourselves as individuals. And I think that you're going to find it, Cancer. I think that's the biggest takeaway. This can be just in general that things happen for you connected with you and your own self-expression. The essence of who you are as, well, it's not really your essence, but it's your image. And it's really like for those people who want to express their individuality, maybe even artistically, that can be very helpful as well. Some people they're talented creatively, but they are kind of derivative. They don't find themselves right away. And I don't think that's uncommon, but eventually you kind of can stumble into your own style. And this comes by embracing your essence. And when the 1st house can be the house of the self, but it it can be, boiled down in a nutshell, that which you wish to project to others. And that can also inform your artistic life, or just feeling more like in the next 18 months, it's almost like a calling card of who you are, and being able to communicate that with other people. If you're looking for a job, if you're looking for a relationship, and who you are opening doors for you in some way. But they're not just through opportunity, through destiny. I think we always have to get into that and talk about it from that perspective. And then on the next day, the other important transit is Jupiter going into its own sign, Sagittarius, 6th house of work. So that can be a time when you have more work than you know what to do with. I'm talking about for the next 13 months. The 6th house to me is the house of service. Well, I didn't make that up, obviously, but I mean, rather than the 10th house, which I think is your individual aspirations and the world recognizing those aspirations, the 6th house is the work itself. I call it the grunge work. The roll up your sleeves and get down to brass tacks house. And so service to humanity comes in different ways. It's not just a question of, oh, I'm going to do this because then people are going to see how talented I am at this. It's like, how can I be best of service? And you may find even like a volunteering opportunity, or more than one, because Jupiter tends to be quite expansive, that really enriches your life. In addition to, if you have the kind of career that's, especially with Uranus there, where it's kind of like up in the air, there's a lot of flightiness. You, at least in between career opportunities, you might have job opportunities. They might not be things that you want to do forever, but they're things that you can do to at least keep yourself paying your bills and things like that. Your health can receive a boost, or if you have a health condition, you can find people who are able to heal you, or to put you on the path to healing, people that help you specifically. On the 15th, Mars goes into Pisces in the 9th house of foreign travel, higher education, God, religion, your personal philosophy. And this can really make it maybe you have a sense of urgency about traveling. And because we're getting into the holiday season, at least in America, we have Thanksgiving at the end of November, you may be actually traveling back home, or maybe you decide to just take off somewhere else so you don't have to deal with the holidays. Who knows? But there could be something, maybe you're just kind of getting everything in place for this trip. It can also be a time of ratcheting up your academic studies. Maybe you're going to be taking, maybe you're like really, it's crunch time for you, and you're really like having to study hard. And there's something that is making you work overtime, perhaps. The 9th house is a house of publishing. So if you have some writing project that you're trying to get maybe self-published or what have you, you might be editing, you might be designing a cover, who knows, or just marketing it. That could be the 9th house. On the 16th, Venus goes direct in Libra. So it started off in your 5th house in Scorpio, and now it's in your 4th house direct. So I probably had mentioned about this already when it went retrograde, but there might have been some kind of love affair coming back into your life. If you're single, or, well, I guess you could be married and have a love affair coming back into your life. But now that Venus is direct in your 4th house, this may involve some kind of beautification of your home. And if you work from home, maybe that's what that 5th and then 4th house was dealing with, where you're trying to get everything. Maybe you realize that you needed to work with a better conditions, just aesthetically speaking. And, when Venus is in the 4th house, there's always the possibility of gaining financially through the mother, through real estate purchases or sales. And on the same day, Mercury turns retrograde. And this is in that house of work. So for those who are looking for a job, maybe you've applied applications or resumes, and you left off your phone number or something that is holding up the process. It can just simply be that you're waiting to hear from an employer, or maybe you hear from somebody that you kind of just gave up on, and you hear back from them after all these months. And you're kind of shaking your head and like, wow, what happened? It could also be a review of your diet. And this could be, you got Jupiter in that house now, and you might be thinking, I want to do these things to better my health. And you look at your diet. Mercury rules that house and can deal with diet. And in retrograde, you might be researching or something like that. On the 22nd, we have kind of an unusual situation where you have the sun going into a new sign and the full moon on the same day, because the full moon is at 0 degrees. And whenever you have a full moon, the sun is at it's opposing it at the exact same degree. So the sun goes into Sag in that 6th house, and there's a full moon in your 12th house. I think that could be a time, Cancer, when you realize the correlation between mental health and physical health, how our emotions, and the 12th house to me is more than just emotions. It's really your consciousness, which to me is the 12th house is the spiritual influence. And so it's metaphysical, beyond the body. But it's, what I call these energetic influences, maybe a disturbance in your psyche or your higher consciousness related to sometimes it's certain things coming up for you, maybe triggers, because the 12th house can be repressed memories. The full moon can bring those out into the open, sometimes through dreams. It's a very psychic placement for the 12th house. And you see how that has impacted your health. By the way, this is, it's almost the end of the reading, but I should say that these transits, it depends on your degree of Sun and Cancer rising. I think a lot of people know that by now. But when I didn't know that when I first started watching YouTube videos. I wasn't aware that, because I wasn't into predictive astrology, even though I studied, personality-based astrology for many years. And that's my main interest, even now, is not predictive astrology. But I was like almost devastated, because I was thinking, all this time I thought that these were exact timing issues here. But it's not. And then it just all kind of clicked for me. And so the only way that you can really find out where these are going to occur for you is to go and get your own chart. They're free. And you can just, if you know how to read it, it's not that difficult to learn how to read a chart. Or you can order a reading from me, and I'd be happy to do a natal interpretation for you. And I have links below this video for that. But I say this because at 0 degrees of the sun and rising, That particular transit means that for the vast majority of you, unless you're born on, November 22nd or 20, depending on what year, it would be 0 degrees of a Sagittarius. Cancer, that this would affect you. This might be more in your 11th house than your 12th house. But I'm not going to get into that. I probably confused some people. I'm so sorry. But I will say that it's really important to allow yourself to see and feel what you see and feel. I would say that especially as you experience this North Node in the first house, because you want to honor yourself during this transit for the next 18 months, Cancer. You want to really be somebody who is looking at yourself as an individual and being open to what the universe has in store for you. And let go of the past, that comfort zone. That's kind of what the South Node is. A lot of people say it's your karmic past. And so it makes it seem like negative. But I would say it's your comfort zone. You've already been there, done that. And sometimes when we have something familiar, it's comforting because it's like we know what to expect, but it's not going to create growth in our life. Okay, so, and the thing about the North Node is I think it's going to produce a lot of change for you, whether you like it or not, because of the nature of what the North Node represents. So that's what I say, embrace this period. On the 24th, Neptune goes direct in Pisces. This is the 9th house. You may have had a harsh reality check. Maybe when Neptune was retrograding, maybe you wanted to get your degree and you had some kind of issue with being able to pay for it. Because when I see that you had Mars in the 8th house, that could be for a loan that you were fighting, or student loan. Student, what do they call that? Just student loans, but financial aid. That's what I was looking for. That's what we call student loans, financial aid. You may have been fighting for that with Mars in the 8th house, but other things too. Maybe you were like, oh, wow, I thought that I was going to be able to graduate this year and it's postponed. And by the way, I'm not talking about you being 22. You might be 32 or 42. How old was I when I got my bachelor's degree? I believe I was like about 42 or something. I was pretty up there. And it took a long time too. I didn't just go full time the whole time. And there were a lot of, deviations. So now that Neptune is direct, you may be feeling more idealistic about these issues. Also, like about travel. Maybe you had a disappointment where you were expecting to travel earlier this year and that did not materialize. And now you feel confident that you're able to do that. So, okay. It seems like I've been doing longer readings for each sign this month, but I hope that you got something out of this, Cancer, and I wish you all the best in November. Take care. Bye.